We did
Hey,
it.
Tanya.
We did it. Yay.
How are you? We did do it. It's our first live Facebook. It's our first live anything. So,
It's our first live anything, and we have technical difficulties.
a little bit, but we'll get used to it. So, we have to do it this way because we have so much going on that every time we get together, we have something else happening, and we haven't been able to keep up with all of the news.
Right. And we live across the island from each other, so it's not
Right.
like,
It's like, going to a different state. if you're in the continental U.S. So that's your house, huh? I've never seen it. Beautiful yard. All right.
It's a tiny house and you can't really see it.
Fabulous.
But it's not raining, so I could stay outside of my tiny, tiny little space.
Awesome. It's raining here too. So I thought, oh, you know what? Ask your landlord if she'd like a goose.
She's out of town for a little while, but yes. Do you ladies want some geese? Want a goose? They're different. So what did you want to talk about today?
Well, I thought an update people probably have heard, and it's not the main thing that we want to talk about because that BDS thing is really important. The boycott, divestment, and sanction bill is really critical to talk about. But a little update on Mauna Kea. The judge for the contested case came back with her findings. I know people feel emotional about it, but it isn't that wasn't expected, right? That it would go in favor of moving forward with the permitting. Nobody's shocked about that. But what I thought was interesting, I know, the protectors knew this was coming. So people can be comforted with the knowledge that they're prepared for many, many, many more steps to come yet. And it's good for us to continue, if you're not, to support them in any way you can. You can get on Pua Case's Facebook. She has so many followers, you can't, but you can friend her and stay up to date on what's happening, or Kahea, and, continue to help them meet the needs that obviously, I think the number one thing is donations.
Right.
But what I thought was interesting and what people can do, one of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs trustees, Dan Ahuna, who's been with us on Mauna Kea during some of the protesting, wrote a very awesome letter. You can look it up on Facebook, but I'll just go through it a little bit. So what he said is, as chair of the OHA Board of Trustees Ad Hoc Committee on Mauna Kea, I led an effort to discuss ideas with the governor and the DLNR and the university on ways to better manage Mauna Kea for nearly 2 years. OHA participated in good faith, and they have gone back to the drawing board multiple times for crafting a proposal to accommodate all interests and encourage a meaningful and significant role for the Native Hawaiian community in terms of managing Mauna Kea. So the talks with the governor stalled on numerous occasions, even though OHA has come back and reignited them, as far as threatening to sue the state over its mismanagement of the Mauna. So Trustee Ahuna says, I find it troubling that Judge Amano rubber-stamped the project with no assurances that the voices of the Native Hawaiian community would be accommodated, and have provided a recommendation for UH to move forward without adapting administrative rules for Mauna Kea as instructed to do since 2009. So he says he's only one of 9 voices on the Office of Hawaiian Affairs board, but it's in the best interest of OHA and Native Hawaiian community for OHA to finally follow through and take legal action. The Board of Trustees is scheduled to meet on August 1st to discuss Mauna Kea, and it is his recommendation that they will file a suit against the state and UH immediately to ensure proper mechanisms are created and implemented before this or any other project breaks ground on Mauna Kea. Awesome. Yeah. What people can do is to follow through and call the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. If you can get to that meeting on August 1st. It's a board meeting, and give testimony on behalf of Mauna Kea. That would be awesome, and support the Office of Hawaiian Affairs in moving forward on filing their lawsuit. So call OHA and tell them thank you, and then follow up with a letter to the trustees and let them know that you support. They're finally taking a position. Finally.
That's really awesome.
Right. It is. It's
really
awesome news. It's awesome news. And it's not that people, like I said, people, it's not that the protectors didn't know that this was coming. So I don't really see it as a setback. I know there's a lot of emotional posts on Facebook and so forth of people being upset, but no one expected that this would go in any other way. So there's lots and lots more steps to take. So people, get it together, and kukia I Mauna, keep pushing. So that's the little update on that. So you got anything before we go forward on our
I got nothing.
You got nothing.
I got nothing. It's it's a beautiful Friday, Pauhana. You know, it's
and you just
I'm happy
want to
that
forget all of. Yeah, you're
so
wondering
hot.
why you're not backstroking in the ocean, huh?
Because it's way overcast and it was pouring rain, so that's why.
Yeah. Awesome. So
So
boycott, diverse and sanction movement. Right? A lot of people are talking about this. It's been all over Facebook. I think some people were shocked about the Israel Anti-Boycott Act 720.
So who's behind this act?
Senator Benjamin Cardin introduced it, and then horrifyingly enough, it's got 46 co-sponsors, and then it's other legislation. I don't remember the bill, the number of it or anything like that. I believe the other version of it has 243 co-sponsors, including Colleen Hanabusa.
It's Senate Bill 720. There is a companion bill in the House. That's HR 1697. So Hanabusa did sign the House bill, huh?
And how many co-sponsors? What, 243 or 246, right?
It was a lot. Let me just look. 246 co-sponsors in the House for this bill.
All right. So what the bill?
This one has a lot of teeth. This one's moving.
It's got a lot of teeth because it's got a lot of lobbyists behind it, right? A lot of Jewish lobbyists, AIPAC. I can't remember. There's 4 or 5 really powerful lobbies that got behind this. Almost every congressperson and senator gets donations from them. I know we talked about, I think even Brian Shantz had at the top of their list, right? At the top of his donor list was one of the main ones, was some Jewish lobby. So anyway, what it says.
And Bernie Sanders too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's not many that don't, but
I think it's part of the ritual to anoint when they come on board.
It actually, it is. They take their obligatory trip to Israel, and they go through their workshop.
And this is scary because this sets a really, really scary precedent.
Yeah. So what does it basically say? The summary of it is, it declares that Congress opposed the United Nations Human Rights Council resolution. Now let's just think about this for a second. Opposed the United Nations Human Rights Council resolution, which urges countries to press companies to divest from or break contracts with Israel. So what the bill declares is that Congress opposed the United Nations Human Rights Council resolution. Just let that sink in. So what it's saying is that they should not comply with international law. Congress should not comply with international law. It's a bill that tells us not to comply with the international law. It encourages full implementation of the United States Israel Strategic Partnership Act of 2014 through enhanced governmental coordination, U.S.-Israel scientific and technological cooperation in civilian areas.
Wow.
And then it amends the Export Administration Act of 1979 and declares that it should be U.S. policy to oppose requests by foreign countries to impose restrictive practices or boycotts against other countries friendly to the U.S. or U.S. persons, and restrict trade practices of boycotts fostered by or imposed by international governments to impose practices or boycotts specifically against Israel. So how this played out, and this is really interesting and horrifying at the same time, this has actually been in the works since 2010. So in 2010 to 2012, there have been companies and community organizations, church organizations, student, university student bodies and so forth that have started social justice programs for Palestine. That's where this got started. Specifically protesting Palestinian genocide. So the divestment, the boycott, divest, and sanction is a proven method of protesting, right?
Right.
That's one of the main tools. I mean, even back in the civil rights era, that was one of the pressure points for the civil rights movement to gain leverage.
So I guess I'm already thinking, so our right to protest in numerous ways is protected under the First Amendment.
Absolutely. And that's yes.
So how does this, when Obamacare came out, right, it had to go up to the Supreme Court, because the Republicans kept saying, that, mandating insurance and these other policies that were written in the bill went against other laws. So how does this have so much traction? I mean, this is a bipartisan bill. This has got Republicans and Democrats alike behind it.
Right. And so when it started in 2010, when it went back to this very specific organization, which was like a test, it was a test lawsuit by numerous Israeli lobbies against this Olympia Food Co-op, if you can believe it or not. So the co-op decided to divest from any kind of Israeli products in their food co-op. And that's where the test suit started. So several of these lobbying organizations who were backed by this is really shocking, the Israeli Consul General got involved in it. So the Israeli government actually got involved in the lawsuit, and this test case was followed by the Israeli press. From 2010 until now, they're still in litigation over this over the right for American companies and organizations to boycott Israel. Because once this Olympia Food Co-op did it, church organizations got involved in it. Like I said, student, university student bodies got involved in it and started these social justice programs for the Palestinian people, and it kind of blew up. And when that happened, the Israeli government, through their lobbying organizations, pushed back and started, going after the boycott movement through legislation. And one of the, I can't remember who it was, but I was listening to this a lecture on how this whole process was going, and one of the lobbying organizations said, "Oh, right, while you students were putzing around on the university waving signs, the adults were in the halls of Congress and legislation getting these bills passed to stop you." So it was really arrogant the way that they assumed that they had the right to come into our country and take and legislate against our First Amendment rights, and our government's fallen for it. So to date, 18 states have implemented some sort of a anti-boycott movement against Yeah, against divesting and sanctioning Israel. And it got to the point now where it's now, right, they've moved that movement to the federal level where they're going to try to do a congressional act. It's not funny, but it just shows you how, you know, who's owned by who.
So it sounds like we're owned by Israel. It sounds like they're dictating our policy.
A lot, right? Right.
And this policy that appears to affect only the country of Israel will set a precedent for anti-boycott legislation that won't feel small at all.
Well, right, any kind of divestment movement. And I was thinking that's why I think it's really important for people to pay attention to this, because if this becomes, in fact, law, then that becomes the foundation for other divestment movements to be stopped, like what's happening with North Dakota. That divestment movement was really powerful, and they had I think Norway divested in the pipeline. So it's the impacts of it are far-reaching, more reaching than Israel. So it's dangerous. So not only is it dangerous, huh?
We need to call Senator Cardin's office.
And we need to call Colleen. Like, what is she thinking?
We need to call she doesn't technically represent us on this island, but she is one of our 4 representatives at the U.S. Congress. So we need to call, people in Hawaii need to call Colleen's office.
And what
are you thinking?
And it's it is our First Amendment right to protest peacefully. And this is a peaceful way to protest. So what else, what's left for us if we can't do this?
Actually, a boycott is one of the best ways to protest because it hits people in their pockets. It's actually one of the best ways that the people can protest.
Exactly. So my concern is far more reaching than this one incident. The other, this divestment movement, it's really interesting. Stephen Hawking's, right? Everybody knows who he is. He got involved in it by boycotting any Israeli conferences. So it really swelled up into the University of Johannesburg cut links with Israeli University. Students, across internationally voted to join BDS Movement. And then other companies and organizations that have left the Israeli market. What happened then when that started to happen is the Israeli lobbyists pushed back and started to blacklist universities, companies, and churches and things like that got involved in any kind of boycotting. So they created a blacklist. And what some of the states started to do, just for example, is university students or any student bodies that got involved in any kind of a boycotting or divestment movement were blacklisted from receiving state or federal funds. So I know. So there's a lot.
Another reason for us to switch that pipeline of money.
Oh my God. So it really had, it's really developed further along than people understand in terms of how many tentacles it already has into the continental U.S., into that community, and into the protest, the ability for people to protest without being harassed or sanctioned. So it's put a chill on people's ability to empower themselves in terms of having some kind of leverage to fight back against things that they find to be heinous, which is Palestinian genocide is, where this is now, but who knows where it'll go in the future. So I think, let's see. Oh, and then this was a little interesting thing. So New York City, Governor Cuomo, because he couldn't get the legislation through, he circumvented it and did other things. It's really crazy, the kind of pressure. I'm surprised that Israel has that much power in the United States. I mean, to that degree that they actually have been able to infiltrate to the point where our own government is blacklisting our own citizens on their behalf.
Right.
Our own educational systems, our own university professors, and other people that have been blacklisted as a result of something as simple as tweeting. That's just one example of a university professor that was tenured and was removed from his job for tweeting in support of a BDS movement that was happening, I believe, on his university campus. So anyway, Colleen Hanabusa.
Really just another way are restricting our freedom to oppose things that our own government is doing too.
Right.
I mean, this is aligning us with one country, and it doesn't matter really what side of the Israeli-Palestinian, crisis that you're on. This has a lasting impact on our ability to peacefully oppose what we don't like that's happening, and that could be carried on to not like if you're opposing universities, if you're opposing other agencies or other areas of the government or corporations and policies. And this is it's getting really scary what these guys are doing. And I don't understand why so many legislators are signing on to this.
Donors, it's their donor base, and it lets us know the power of the Israeli lobby. Yeah, the power of the Israeli lobby is significant. And what you're saying in terms of we've had other divestment movements that have been.
I'm going to look up Cardin on Open Secrets.
Yeah, and and while you're talking about that, you can take this model and you can look at other divestment processes that have gone on. For example, the campaign against Monsanto was pretty successful. When you had that list of remember that list came out when you go shopping, boycott these products. You could just take that little card along, and you knew that those food manufacturers all had GMOs in them, and it was powerfully successful. So we have to look at things like that can be impacted in the future. I think one of the most frightening things is the lateral movement that can happen with the Dakota Access Pipeline, because that divestment movement is gaining a lot. It's powerful already, but it's gaining a lot of momentum. Even after the 2008 crash, right? The financial crash when people divested from big banks. So those kinds of things really will, I think this is something to pay attention to, because once that right, that First Amendment right specifically to do that is applied in one place, it's a slippery slope as always.
It's a slippery slope.
So
I mean,
so what do you got in Cardin?
They're just picking away at us.
Well, more like hatcheting.
Well, now they're pretty bold now at this point, right?
Yeah. And there was there was a lot of pushback on this. So some of the feedback that came back was that they're gonna Congress and the Senate are going to rewrite that. But in my opinion, no, you can't rewrite something like that. So it's really important for people to pay attention to it and then respond in some way. A phone call always helps. So what do you got on the
campaign to stop this? We need a major campaign on this. I was just looking at the pro-Israel top recipients of money and comparing these people to who's signed on as co-sponsors of this bill. And so Ben Cardin, who's a Democrat from Maryland, has received $218,000 from the pro-Israel PAC in 2012. He's the fourth top recipient of money. And if I remember correctly, I do believe that Menendez and Bill Nelson are also co-sponsors on this bill. Let me just double check. And they're like number 1 and 2. Yep, there we go. Bill Nelson and Menendez. Yep. So it looks like the top, and let's see, let's just check around here. But 3 of the top 4 recipients of pro-Israel PAC money were the first people to sign on to this bill.
Yeah. They got their marching orders, right?
They're freaking sick.
So when another country can come into our country and pass legislation to tell us what to do and forbid us and forbid our own universities and businesses, yeah.
Saudi Arabia does the same thing.
I know. Well, this is so blatant now that it's ridiculous.
This is sick. So people, please go on to congress.gov, look up the Israel Anti-Boycott Acts, both in the House and the Senate. See if your representative is on that list and call their office and tell them no.
Yeah.
And anything that starts to strip away more of our rights, I mean, we're not going to have any left.
Well, and now it's like a free-for-all. Not only are our own Congress, Senate, and state and counties stripping our rights, but now other countries are getting in on it. It's insanity.
Because they're like, oh my God, they're sheeple. We can come in there. We can take them over. We can tell them what to do. It's because we're not doing anything about it.
Right. And at this point, whether you're pro or not pro-Israel or you're pro, Palestine, or it doesn't matter at this point. I mean, it matters, but that isn't the point. The point is our First Amendment rights.
Our First Amendment
to do right, exactly. So that's the scoops. Colleen Hanabusa's number in Washington is 202-225-2726. 202-225-2726. Call her in Washington, D.C.
And
tell
vote her out, Oahu. Vote this woman out.
And you know what? The other thing I have to say is the feedback from the Kalamai, the knuckleheads that signed it, you know what they said? Well, they didn't know what was in the bill. They didn't know what all of this was in there. Like, well,
I'm sorry.
Why are you?
That it's really hard to read.
Yeah, it's getting to be ridiculous that you don't know what you're signing. So, and
legislators, go to congress.gov.
Yeah,
your own bills are online. At least have your staff read them and summarize it for you.
It's being sold as a anti-Semitic,
right.
am I saying that right? Anti-Semitic bill. So the boycotting is being wrapped in this, in that, victimized stance of this is anti-Semitic and it has to stop.
Right. Well, that was the same way that it's the same way that Obama passed, the anti protesting in the, in the NDAA. I mean, they do it under the guise of something else. They do it under the guise of national security. Right. Or they, so that's how they are able to put this shit in there. Excuse my language, or not.
No, it's ridiculous. So anyway, that's BDS. I learned a lot about it. I didn't know that it was that far-reaching. Is that lightning? It looked like a little flash of lightning behind you. Ah, or it's you.
Or it was just divine inspiration.
So anyway,
or just divine inspiration.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
So interesting. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's come home to roost. I mean,
I just can't believe the bills that they want to happen. If they put this much effort into single payer, we would have it yesterday.
Well, how many bills are in Congress or the Senate on behalf of Israel? More. Remember that time? And I'm going to look that up again because there were pages of them. Mm-hmm. Remember when we did that? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So exactly, if they spent that much time taking care of us, oh my God. We only need 3. Well, we need more than that, but we don't. We only need a few of them to get us turned around. I know. So that's the scoops on boycott, divest, and sanction. I'm in love with it now. I mean, I always thought it was a great idea, but now I think it's an awesome idea. And it's the way to go. So that's the scoops on that.
Well, thanks.
You got anything else, T?
Awesome. No, I'm good. I'm gonna call Colleen Hanabusa now.
Yeah, I'm gonna call her too. And then we're gonna promote our live event. We haven't invited any people in, but we will invite people in for our next one, and we're gonna talk about that ALEC bill that's attempting to go through. Right, that takes the vote, the ability for us to vote our own senators in away, and allows the state Senate to appoint our senators. So we're going to talk about that because that's coming down the pike.
So, right. So that idea is from the what is ALEC stand
17th Amendment.
Yeah, and it's like
ALEC is the American Legislative Exchange Committee, nonprofit organization, right? Funded by the Koch brothers, and actually that
lobbying
process. Well, yeah, it's a bills that come out of there are just handed to Congress. In fact, I'll look it up, but one time, or probably more than once, someone actually submitted a bill and forgot to take ALEC's logo off the top of it and submitted it with that still there. So I know. I'll look it up because it was really, it was funny, but not so funny. But they're actually the ones that write legislation now.
Yeah.
And other lobbying
like
groups.
Think tanks and lobbyists, right? They're the ones that write the legislation.
So ALEC's been, a lot of things that come through there. I think back in the mid 80s and early 90s when nuclear energy was trying to break into Hawaii, that movement came out of, it didn't come specifically to Hawaii, but just the pushing of nuclear energy in general came out of ALEC. So anyway, we're going to talk about that one. And then we have the,
but that just to clarify for people, so if they want to go Google this, ALEC, ALEC, this bill that they're trying to propose, or it's actually not it's a resolution technically, I think, right? And they want the state Senate, each individual state Senate, to be able to appoint the representatives that go to DC. So
exactly.
We would not, we the people would not be able to elect them. We would not be voting for them anymore. Insane.
Their angle on that is the 17th Amendment. Because back in the day, whenever, and I'm going to look up a little more of it because I just read through it real briefly. It used to be that way. So
we don't go back to that.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that, and then what do we have coming up during the week? The Court of Arbitration.
Oh yeah,
right. That's right. So we'll talk about that and the standing of the nation of Hawaii as still being an occupied nation. So that recognition from the Court of Arbitration looks like it might be coming down the pike. So that's something important to pay attention to. Yeah, so those are the next three.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's coming up. So stay tuned. Okay, T, what do you got planned for the rest of your day?
I don't know yet.
Oh,
I don't know.
I'll keep you posted. I'm headed to Kona to do something
with the laptop.
Listen to some testimonies. So.
Oh yeah, you're gonna go and go to that meeting, right? Excellent.
Yeah, I'm gonna go snoop.
I think
gonna snoop around.
Big Island Video News. I think Big Island Video News might have posted from last night's testimony. So I'm gonna go check that out.
Oh, okay. I'll go look at it too. All right, girl.
All right. Have a great evening.
Well, here we are.
Text me from
Mauna,
Kona.
And
I'm Tanya, and we're the Paradise Patriots.
And we're the Paradise Patriots. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Aloha.
Aloha.